starts.
All right, black and white sports reporters. Well, it just went nuclear. It just went nuclear. The WNBA and the NBA, the owners fed up. The investors fed up. And they have now drawn the line into the sand.
Nuclear. That's the word he used, and he's not exaggerating. After more than a year of negotiations, the WNBA just dropped an ultimatum that changes everything. March 10th. That's the deadline. Miss it, and the 2025 season gets delayed. And here's what makes this different from every other labor negotiation deadline we've seen. This time, the public knows the numbers.
Will be delayed without labor deal by March 10th. The WNBA told players that the sides would need to agree to a labor deal by March 10, or the season would be delayed per a source, a league source confirmed to Front Office Sports. The sides have blown several deadlines as they negotiated over a new collective bargaining agreement for more than a year and are rapidly closing in May 8th scheduled date for the start of the season.
The league told players in a bargaining session on Monday, February 24th, that they need a deal signed by March 10th or the May 8th season start gets pushed back. That's 2 weeks from tomorrow. And unlike previous deadlines that came and went quietly, this one has teeth. The league needs time to conduct free agency, run the expansion draft for the Golden State Valkyries and Toronto franchises, and hold the college draft. None of that can happen without a CBA in place. The current agreement expired January 9th after several extensions. Since then, the league has been operating under what they call status quo with a mutually agreed moratorium. No trades, no free agency, everything frozen.
Moratorium as the new CBA is required for free agency and trades. Though the season is set for May, the league needs time to conduct free agency and expansion draft for 2 new teams in the college draft. The sides swapped proposals last week, with the league not budging off its offer of $5.6 million per team. That's on the salary cap. Players have sought a salary cap of more than $9 million. It's 9.5, and a greater share of league revenue. The league claims the players' proposed structure is, quote, unrealistic and would cause hundreds of millions of dollars in losses for the league and its teams.
Here's where the gap sits right now. The league's latest offer, $5.6 million per team salary cap. The players counter $9.9 million. That's not a negotiation gap, that's a canyon. And the league isn't mincing words about it anymore. They're calling the players' proposal unrealistic and saying it would cause hundreds of millions of dollars in losses for the league and its teams. But there's something else happening here that's more important than the dollar figures. The league just went public with financial details that were always kept private before: revenue-sharing bonuses that players received for the first time in WNBA history, actual loss projections, real numbers instead of vague statements. That's not standard negotiating procedure. That's a strategic decision to shift public perception.
Do I think if you put a vote to every player out there, it would pass? It would pass. If it was a secret vote and all the vindictive players in the league wouldn't have the ability to know who cast what vote in what direction, I think it would pass today. I do believe that. I do believe that. Interesting. The hourglass sand is at the bottom.
Now here's the question that actually matters. If you put this deal to a secret vote right now, today, with every player in the league casting a ballot that nobody else could see, would it pass? He thinks it would. And the fact that he had to add that qualifier, secret vote, tells you everything about the pressure dynamics inside the Players Association. Because this isn't just about whether the offer is fair. It's about whether players feel safe voting for it. Whether they can accept a deal without facing backlash from teammates, from leadership, from the loudest voices in the union. That's not how labor negotiations are supposed to work. But that's where we are.
So the ball is in the WNBPA's court. The time is ticking. That's funny. That is funny. That's plenty of time for the WNBPA to make some dumb social media posts and send out inflatables. Oh, yeah. God only knows what Natasha Cloud's working on right now. I mean, seriously. Good Lord. It's crazy. It's time to get moving, WNBPA. Stop being greedy. Take the deal. Let's play basketball.
The hourglass metaphor is perfect, because unlike the NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball, the WNBA doesn't have decades of history to fall back on if this goes sideways. They don't have generational fan bases who'll come back no matter what. They have momentum, right now, this season. Coming off the Caitlin Clark effect that drove viewership to record levels and delivered those first-ever revenue-sharing bonuses. And momentum is the most fragile thing in sports business. You can't pause it. You can't put it on hold and expect it to be there when you come back. If games get canceled, if the season gets delayed, if fans who just started paying attention decide this league isn't worth the drama, that momentum evaporates. Major League Baseball almost didn't recover from the 1994 strike that canceled the World Series, and baseball had 100 years of history behind it. The WNBA has 28 years. There's no cushion here.
Crazy. It's like they're going into a room and they don't know the rest of the world even exists. The women in charge would rather burn it down. Time to pass the torch. I mean, come on. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. That's going to be, I mean, if this thing guys, if there's a work stoppage, this league's toast. They don't have the history.
But let's talk about what happens in the next 2 weeks, because there's a pattern to how these things play out, and it's worth understanding the game within the game. The Players Association has been running a public relations campaign for months, social media posts, inflatables at games, messaging about knowing your worth and not settling. That's standard union playbook material. You build public support, you create pressure on ownership, you make it look like you're fighting for something righteous. Except this time, the league countered with something unions hate: transparency. They let it leak that players got revenue-sharing bonuses. They put actual dollar figures on the table publicly. They explained the math behind why the players' proposal doesn't work. That's not how NBA ownership operates. That's Adam Silver changing the rules of engagement.
What's my prediction? That on March 9th at 11 p.m. Eastern time, Central time, that'd be midnight Eastern. Let's say 11 p.m. Eastern time, they will get a deal done. It's going to be a down to the wire.
And here's where the prediction comes in. March 9th, 11 p.m. Eastern time. That's when the deal gets done. Not because the players suddenly see reason, not because the league makes a massive last-minute concession, but because the Players Association leadership needs to save face. They need to be able to stand in front of their membership and say, "We fought until the very last second. We got every dollar we could possibly get. We didn't back down." Even if the final deal is barely different from what's on the table right now. The performance matters as much as the outcome. That's the dance. The league sets a hard deadline with real consequences. The union pushes it to the absolute limit. Both sides make minor adjustments in the final hours. A deal gets announced with minutes to spare. Everyone declares victory.
Y'all want to leak out that y'all got some revenue sharing bonuses? How about get you a little catch this deadline? How about that? How about catch me outside? How about that? Adam Silver done put the Dr. Phil thug chick on him. Catch this deadline. How about that? Tell me what you think. Woo! Woo! Peace. I'm out.
So let's break down what's really at stake here, because this goes way beyond salary caps and revenue splits. This is about whether the WNBA can function as a sustainable professional sports league or whether it remains perpetually dependent on NBA subsidies. The players want $9.9 million per team in salary cap space. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. NBA teams have caps over $140 million. Why shouldn't WNBA players get a bigger piece? But here's the reality check. NBA teams generate billions in revenue. WNBA teams, even with last season's growth, are still operating at losses that the NBA covers. The league's $5.6 million offer represents a significant increase from the current cap. It's not a lowball. It's not ownership being cheap. It's a number based on actual revenue projections that account for continued growth without assuming unrealistic spikes. The players' $9.9 million demand assumes revenue growth that hasn't materialized yet. It's betting on potential instead of building from reality. And that's where this gets tricky, because the players aren't wrong to believe in the league's potential. Caitlin Clark's rookie season proved there's an audience for WNBA basketball that nobody fully understood before. Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, the expansion teams, the new media deals, all of that points toward growth. But you can't spend projected future revenue in today's salaries. That's how businesses fail. The league's calling the players' proposal unrealistic for a reason. Run the math on $9.9 million per team across 15 teams with 2 expansion franchises joining. That's payroll alone before you factor in coaching staffs, facilities, travel, marketing, everything else that goes into running a professional sports team. The revenue isn't there to support it without massive losses that make the league unsustainable. Here's what the Players Association isn't talking about publicly. The revenue-sharing bonuses they just received for the first time ever. That's new money. That's a mechanism that didn't exist before. That's the league saying, when we grow, you grow automatically. That's actually a huge win that's getting overlooked in the fight over the salary cap number. But there's a political problem inside the union. If you're a player rep or a union leader who's been posting on social media about not backing down, about knowing your worth, about fighting for every dollar, you can't suddenly turn around and tell your membership, actually the league's offer is pretty good, we should take it. Not without looking weak, not without facing accusations that you sold out. That's why the secret ballot comment matters so much, because it suggests there's a gap between what players actually think privately and what they feel they can say publicly. And that's a toxic dynamic for any negotiation. When people can't vote their conscience without fear of social repercussions, you don't get honest outcomes. You get performative resistance that serves nobody's interests. Think about the timing of this ultimatum. The league waited until late February to drop a hard deadline. That's strategic. They let the Players Association run their PR campaign. They let the social media momentum build. They let Natasha Cloud and other vocal players make their statements. And then, once the players were fully committed to their public position, the league said, okay, here's the actual deadline with real consequences. Now the Players Association is in a bind. They can't be seen backing down after all that public posturing. But they also can't let the season get delayed without taking massive blame from fans who just want to watch basketball. So they're going to negotiate down to the wire, accept something close to what's already on the table, and frame it as a victory they fought hard to achieve. Watch how this plays out over the next 2 weeks. You'll see more social media posts from players about solidarity and fighting for fair compensation. You'll see the union release statements about how far apart the sides still are. You'll see speculation about whether the season will actually start on time. All of that is theater, designed to make the eventual compromise look like a hard-fought win instead of an inevitable outcome. And the league knows this. Adam Silver has been through enough labor negotiations to understand the performance aspect. He's giving the union space to save face while holding firm on the financial reality. That March 10th deadline isn't arbitrary. It's calculated to create just enough pressure to force a deal without backing the players into a corner where they have no choice but to fight. But here's the risk nobody's talking about enough. What if the Players Association actually believes their own rhetoric? What if the leadership has convinced themselves that the league will blink first, that ownership will cave under pressure, that they can push past the deadline and still get a better deal? Because if that happens, if they miscalculate and let March 10th pass without an agreement, the consequences go beyond just a delayed season. You lose free agency, period. You lose the expansion draft. You lose the college draft. You lose training camp time. You lose preseason games. You lose the carefully planned May 8th season opener that's been marketed and promoted. You lose momentum with casual fans who were planning to tune in. You lose credibility with sponsors who sign deals based on a certain schedule. You lose everything that makes a professional sports league function smoothly. And unlike the NBA, where a lockout creates massive pressure on both sides because billions of dollars are at stake, a WNBA work stoppage creates asymmetric pressure. The players lose salary they desperately need. The owners lose money they were already prepared to lose as part of growing the league. The NBA continues subsidizing the WNBA either way. So who has more leverage? Who can afford to wait longer? The Players Association is operating like they have equal leverage to NBA players during a lockout. They don't. The financial dynamics are completely different. And if they push this past March 10th, thinking the league will blink first, they're going to find out very quickly that Adam Silver meant exactly what he said. So yeah, my prediction is they get a deal done on March 9th at 11 p.m. Eastern. Because cooler heads will prevail. Because the players who aren't on social media every day understand the risk. Because enough people in that union will recognize that a delayed season kills everything they've been building toward. But the fact that we're even having this conversation, the fact that there's genuine uncertainty about whether professional athletes will accept a significant pay increase because it's not as large as they demanded, tells you something important about where this league is right now. The WNBA is at an inflection point. It can continue growing into a sustainable business that supports higher salaries through actual revenue growth, or it can implode under the weight of unrealistic expectations and internal politics. The next 2 weeks determine which path it takes. Choose wisely.